Now, if you were to ask any Christian theologian if the death of the Messiah was foretold in the Old Testament, many would cite numerous references to how his death was described in such a way that the crucifixion seems to be a perfect fit. But today, we're not going to look at all of the references to the death of the Messiah all throughout the Old Testament. No, today we're just going to look at one chapter from the scroll of Isaiah. And we're going to see if the language here sounds as if the Messiah was foretold to suffer and die for his people. So, the prophet Isaiah, he received many visions and revelations from God about the coming king, the Messiah from the lineage of David, who would one day rule the world. Much of his visions were written on scrolls around 750 BC. Portions of his scrolls were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls and were dated to have been written well before the time of Christ. So if we see anything here that sounds like the crucifixion of the Messiah, that would be a pretty big find. The prophet Isaiah here is basically prophesying. He's almost lamenting about who has believed his prophecy, his message about this coming Messiah. And he's going to share the horrible abuse this Davidic king will suffer. 53:3, it says, "He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering, familiar with pain. Like one to whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem." This is so big because Isaiah is laying it out. He's saying that when the Messiah comes, we, the people of God, the people of Israel, we're not going to even be impressed with him. And what is the reality of the world today? That's exactly what has happened. People are not impressed with him because they just see him as a human who lived and died, and that's it. And in his day, they crucified him. Which is why it says he's a man of suffering. And here it is. I love prophecy. He says, surely he took up our pain and bore our suffering, yet we consider him punished by God, stricken by him, and afflicted. This Messiah king, he says, surely when he died, when he suffered, he did that to take up our sin. What we deserved, he took it up upon himself. Yet we, why does he say we? Because his people, when they saw him being crucified, what? They considered him punished by God and stricken by him and afflicted. So there's like this struggle going on here in the passage with Isaiah. He's relating himself to repentant Israel and the Israel who killed him. He says he took up our pain on the cross, but also look what we did to him. But he was pierced for our transgressions. He was crushed for our iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him, and by his wounds we are healed. But he was pierced for our transgressions and was crushed for our iniquities. Wow. Isaiah here is just laying out the gospel. He's going to be pierced for our transgressions and crushed for our iniquities. He died for us. The gospel is right here in the Old Testament. The prophets foretold the whole thing. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before his shearers is silent. And so he did not open his mouth. And we see clearly how when Jesus was led to his death, he didn't open his mouth. Now, Jesus was a man of power, God incarnate. He could have opened his mouth and called legions of angels, thousands of angels to come to his rescue. He said that he could have done that. In one word, angels could have come and got him off that cross. In one split second, he could have at any point come off that cross. And think about that. He was suffering for hours on that cross, nails in his hands. And at any point, he could have said, okay, God, I'm done. I can't handle this. Bring the angels and save me right now. But he didn't do it. He didn't open his mouth. He kept his mouth shut through that entire time, and he dealt with it for us.